Welcome to Stubs with Jason. S-T-U-B-S spells Stubs. S-T-U-B-S spells Stubs. Stubs.
Well, let's go.
All right, so we saw a movie this weekend.
I guess.
Wow. Okay. It was called Transformers 1. Here are the things that I marked down that I liked about this movie. Okay.
Is there a likes and dislikes?
There's a dislikes. Yes. There's a likes and then a cons. Okay. You like that? Yeah. All right. All right. So the likes that I put as overall the voice cast, I thought they did pretty good. Like, I don't
remind me what Megatron is. What's Brian
Tyree Henry?
Yeah. Okay. All right. He's fine. He's
fine. He's fine.
All of them are fine. I felt that there's his Megatron stuff, like the legit Megatron, is way better than the earlier stuff. He's just kind of,
yeah. When he's flipped, it's much better.
When he has the power behind it, and he's getting more baritone and stuff, and it's like that's where I think he really could have shined more in this and whatever comes next. But yeah, in Hemsworth. General American accent.
He does all right. It's just all right. Yeah, like again, it's like you wanted to do somebody different. It's fine.
Keegan-Michael Key is great. He's just doing himself.
He is great as himself.
Crazy, goofy. Scarlett Johansson is Scarlett Johansson.
Yeah. All right. So cast I thought was fine. Nobody really
no standouts.
Nobody stood. Yeah. Nobody was really bad, but nobody was really amazing. Where I felt like, they really showed up, and it kind of took the movie.
The only distracting point, or the only point that I would make, is if they could have done it even as like a throwaway thing, or even the narrator at the beginning of it, you just bring Peter Cullen in just to do a bit part.
Yeah. Well, Lawrence Fishburne. I thought Lawrence Fishburne did fine.
Well, it's fine, but like even. Because there's always like a narrator at the beginning.
I'm with you. It definitely could have been.
I'm just saying. It would have been nice.
I got you. All right. So I felt anytime the movie went into a little more of a stylized design, like the highlight for me in this movie was I called it the Morpheus flashback scene. The desert of the real. When that Prime is giving them the story of here's what happened.
Well, it's a hologram, but all in sand.
Well, but it's got a great look. I like Megatron's tank mode. I know that's a small thing. I know it's a small thing. Well, come on, man. It hasn't happened in the movies. It hasn't happened in the movies yet.
What are you talking about? It hasn't happened in the movies. What?
When does he turn into a tank in a movie?
In 2 and 3. Or no, in 2 for sure, he is a tank mode. In Revenge of the Fallen, he is a tank. Or not a traditional tank. He's an alien tank, but he is a tank.
I don't think that's right.
What are you serious? You're going to challenge me on this. Are you kidding me? The first one, he's a crazy alien plane. He gets destroyed. They bring him back to life, and then he transforms into
He's like a truck. He's like a desert truck.
That's in Dark of the Moon.
Okay. All right, so 2.
He is like a hybrid space tank / real tank thing. Like it's a amalgam of a couple of different forms.
But
it's not a triple changer, but he kind of is.
Okay, but it's not so much.
It's not to the point where you would notice. The only times was like right before the forest battle when he's chasing Prime and he's firing, and then at the very end when he escapes. I think he escapes to fly towards the pyramid. You see him transform real quick, and you see treads, and then he takes off. But okay. Yeah, that's that one. And then flipping
doesn't sound like it's showcased.
Age of Extinction. He's a semi truck, which makes no sense. It was Galvatron at that point, but then last night he's a jet. So
okay. Liked.
It's cool though that they start incorporating the vehicle components into their. Like at one point, Prime, when they're having that final fight, he like activates his wheels and
Definitely
takes
does.
off.
Yeah,
and then,
yeah.
One, oh man, I don't remember this part, but I think it's when he's fighting in the air, he grabs one of the jets and he transforms and reverses, and he tears him in half when he's transforming.
Right.
Oh man, that was kind of cool too.
It was cool.
All right.
So I liked Prime. I liked how they handled his transformation, his proper transformation at the end of the movie.
The ascendancy.
Yeah, I liked that. And then again, Optimus and Megatron's friendship, I thought the way their friendship was presented is solid.
Again, I liked the actual incorporation of the some of the touchstones of the mythology that had always gotten glossed over in the live action stuff, and then even more so in like some of the TV shows and everything. So like especially the creationism thing. Like I find that to be the more acceptable like origin of their species more than anything, because it's not just like some of them, they're just like, okay, an alien race built them and they were a slave labor force and then they got sentience, and as they really originally started as just like, you know, dumb robots. But this as actually having like, you know, there's a religious aspect to it that's built on, and then they have a belief structure and things as things go on, and there are like, not in this version of it, but there was a literal devil. There's a devil that exists.
Yeah.
And there's as far as we know, that doesn't exist at this point yet. So like there is, and then there's, you know, there's factions or detractors that fall into that side. There are literal followers of Unicron that are not on either side. They're on his side. They are a totally opposing force. And that's a big threat. You know, there's different interpretations of like how they can go. It's not just based off of, you know, they're the good guys and they're the bad guys. There's a lot of in between that too. So
all right, so give them a little more room to work with as far as getting it outside of just black and white,
from
black
the
versus
mythos
white.
of saying that, you know, it's propagates beyond just being good guys and bad guys.
Okay,
that's where I'm kind of cool with that more than anything.
Anything else you want to shout out?
No, let's do the dislikes.
All right, so the cons. Again, we've talked about it a lot, but I'm just Megatron's final heel turn. Like I said,
it is like a wrestling heel turn.
It's just like, again, it feels just like he's
not forced. It's
not
very
forced.
like,
it's clunkily executed.
Way too decisive in the moment, that he just flips the switch and like, okay, I'm choosing this now.
My eyes are red now.
Right.
Literally is what, you know what I mean? And it's, again, like, they just could have executed that better. Let's see here.
Did the humor do enough for you?
So I have the comedy as one of my cons.
Really?
Yes. Again, I know we were at an early showing. I felt it was... So there were kids in that audience with us. Mm-hmm. It looked to be very much just like a standard. Like, I did not get the sense that we were in there with a bunch of diehard Transformer fans at all.
I'm kind of surprised too. I mean, there were more kids than I would have thought. I guess when we see the fan event one, that
I'd be
might
curious
change
to
things.
see what the experience
if the turnout's
like.
A little different.
Yeah.
But like I mean, there were young kids that I remember hearing like in the theater and stuff, and a lot of it was like, when's Optimus Prime gonna show up or something to that effect.
Yeah.
So like, you know, they're not really paying attention.
Yeah.
And there's not a ton of slow moments in this, but there are some slow, like the info dump moments and stuff. That's when they're like, okay, those kids are checking out. Like
they're having a rough moment.
They don't care.
Yeah.
It's funny because like during that Alpha Trion scene where he's telling the history and stuff, and then it's like all of a sudden we're being attacked. Like I'm like, okay, this is where the kids are back on board.
Kids are back in. Yeah, absolutely.
So, I mean, but like, yeah,
I dinged the comedy though. Most of it didn't land with me. Again, I really did not like the...
Oh, come on. You didn't see it from the trailer.
I didn't like the Aaron thing because, again,
that's the Aaron thing.
Fully
but
takes
you
you
didn't
out
like
of
the bit where he's like, my finger can transform into something.
That was... So, look, that was
good.
Almost like... I will say this for me. It was like when they made this, someone clearly made the choice of PG, not PG-13.
Sure.
I think I would have liked...
I would have dropped some hells or something.
They do drop some hells.
Okay.
I would have preferred a PG-13 version of this movie, I think. And in that PG-13 of that movie, you definitely see him transform and do the shooting the bird there.
That would have been great.
Properly, right?
You don't even get it in Guardians traditionally.
That said, that was the funniest part of the movie for me, was that line, there's
a couple of gags. There's a few gags that I think are pretty okay. It just depends on, I don't know. I don't remember them off the top of my head, but that one for sure is pretty good. Oh, man.
So, along with that, aside from the comedy not hitting with me, again, I feel like we're too close in our fight sequences as far as the cinematography goes. Like, we're dealing with nothing but virtual characters and cameras at this point in time. And I know we've got that mostly in the base stuff, right? You know what I mean? Most of that stuff might be a played at most.
A lot of it is just looking like two junk piles smashing up against each other.
That's all it was, but with a little more color in this, to me, man.
Well, a lot
like
of
their actions are a little more, but the framing that they do.
Maybe that's just because of the way that they're trying to keep it more in line with like traditional choreography. Like you can't deviate too much. Like, okay, the best equivalent I can think of is for like animated, like traditional animated, not traditional, but like an animated movie's fight scenes is The Incredibles. The way The Incredibles do their fight scenes, and they're not even real fight scenes. Like when they punch things, it's always like, you know, big shows of like force and stuff. But they're not like, you know, there's some like karate actions and things that are going on, but not like expansive, like big old Jackie Chan style, like fight choreography. That's what this felt like. And I'm like, I don't think that needs to be there. Like, who says that each one of them is like a martial artist as soon as they get like their cogs back and stuff? Like,
isn't part of what Transformers is supposed to be? Is part of it is their
scale?
Part of it is their scale.
No, when they fight, they shoot guns at each other. That is the warfare,
and that's fine.
It doesn't. Close combat is very segmented to specific ones of them, like specific characters. Half the time, it's just who's got the bigger gun. That's what it usually came down to. But I mean, it in this context with an action kind of movie, you can't not have it.
They didn't do a good job of setting up any. There's like two shots that set up some scale.
They do look so different.
And I think that's part of what hurts the fights is like the fights should feel.
Oh, you're just saying that they themselves as robots are supposed to be big? Yeah. Well, that's the problem with having them all. And again, without having humans for context.
You don't have to, because again, there's a couple of shots in this movie that have great scale to them.
Okay, when Prime is talking about his, like the train sequence, I think is pretty okay with showing scale and stuff. And then when Prime doing his speech to rile up all the miners and stuff, that okay, there's a pretty big difference in size.
Yeah, this dude is definitely grown, right?
But you don't see that again. Like,
I'm with you. I know.
They're not fighting together, and you never see them together. And then B, it's like, they play it a little too safe as seeing that like there's a revolution or that they needed an army to fight with them, because it's just the main characters going up against other main characters, and everything else that's happening in the background might as well be out of focus. So I don't know. Scale, do you feel that that's necessary to have that scale that they are giant robots fighting other giant robots?
I think it helps make it more engaging. Like, I think that helps.
That's like saying if it's like Pacific Rim and you never see that they are like in an atmosphere
it's really simple. I mean, look,
it's like Real Steel without the ring.
Pacific Rim 1 versus Pacific Rim 2. That's all you like. You get a full sense of their scale in Pacific Rim 1. And Pacific Rim 2...
A lot of that is the environment. It's putting it at night, putting it in the water, putting it around things that you know... visually that there's this thing is huge in comparison to other things. You can
establish scale like in movies. They just don't. They don't take the time to do it.
And like they're as big as any of the legendary Godzilla stuff seem like his scale is correct, especially at
2014.
This newest one when they are having the fight. I don't even remember where they all come out on that beach front or whatever.
It's Rio de Janeiro.
Oh my gosh, I didn't even realize that. But like that.
Oh, it's a problem.
That might as well have been them fighting in the Hollow Earth, because you don't know like how the heck their scale is supposed to work.
I won't argue with you at all. Yeah.
Like that, I think at one point in time that little whip crystal piece like goes flying and lands on something, and I'm like, I would have had no idea how big that thing is if it wasn't in the ground in comparison to something else.
Yeah.
Like,
I got you right, but good filmmakers don't have that problem. Good cinematography can fix that. And that's what I'm saying. And
this is the trade-off with not having it set on an Earth-based thing where you have it in proportionate scale to what we know.
You can still do it. You can still establish those things.
Everything is in scale to them on their own planet.
So my other like specific concise con that I had listed was the Transformer sound. Call me petty, but like it's not really like it's there, but it's buried.
Well, it's diluted.
It's very diluted. And to me, I'm like, you don't do it the whole time. You don't do it every time. You don't have to. But by God, that first time,
it's funny that they
should have been showcased a little more.
They have
right?
this love-hate relationship in all of them. Well,
they do.
With the exception of the '86 movie.
I agree with you. Yeah.
Like even some of the shows like they either use it and they use it consistently all the time, or they use it sort of and it's just like an afterthought or something like that.
Right.
And it's always like some subtle variation on it, but for the most part, it's usually there. And sometimes, like in this, it's just diluted. Like it's just, I don't know if it's because of the sound quality that we had, because I felt like the sound quality we had in this theater, like the score and the actual like voice track is like we're on the same levels. Like there was no like it all felt washed to me. Like there was.
I got you. Sure.
It didn't sound like it was unified. It wasn't so separate.
Home viewers' dream, by the way, because that's typically not how movies are mixed.
I guess, but like you're not everybody's watching it on streaming with like perfect surround sound or anything like that.
Well, no, I'm just saying most people. It's the constant argument of when it's loud, it's too loud, and then it's too quiet.
Crank it back.
So what you're saying is it's all kind of level. So this will make a lot of people happy.
Maybe, I guess, because TV speakers suck, and
they are awful.
There's no balance between them.
Right.
But I mean, that's notwithstanding. But like the sound itself is okay. Again, it appears, and it's a trademark, and it's should exist for all of them. There's tons of debate in like lore and stuff that says what it is that is actually doing. This is kind of funny with the sense that is literally their cogs that gives them the ability to do this, and that's the thing traditionally that is making that noise when they change, and they don't reference that at all. Like they should have never heard it. They should have never heard it ever, like at all. When they changed for the first time, they should have been like, "What's that noise? I've never made this noise before."
Sure.
Like it would have been a great call out.
It would have been.
But I mean, yeah. The other thing is the thing that they Hasbro has denounced as saying that they've stopped using regularly because it dilutes the brand, is using transform as like a verb, as like a descriptive thing.
Whatever.
So Prime throughout all of the Michael Bay movies has never said transform and roll out. That's never. He says roll out, he'll say Autobots roll out or whatever, but he never says that. Hemsworth says it the first time in this, and it's been the first time in like 20-something years since they've actually used that line as a description. They do it a couple of times where they say transform, and they're like describing the ability to do it.
Yeah.
But I think that they kind of made the caveat because it's so integral to this story.
Yeah.
That they had to do it.
Okay.
But like it's annoying. It's so annoying when they use it in like their promotional videos for toys and stuff. They say convert. It drives me insane. That's wild. It's the dumbest thing ever to use it as like that's what they are. That's what it's doing. You can't not say that's what it is. It's so like when the Prime active, the voice active Prime, the RoboSyn
right.
robot that says it comes with like instructions on like all the voice lines that you can give it to do, and you can tell it to do like Optimus Prime convert. Like that's all the promotional stuff. That's what they say, but you can tell them Optimus Prime transform. It'll literally do the exact same thing. It's like they know that you're going to
know what you really want to do,
but they don't want to actually have to say that it's
wild,
there.
Man.
It's so stupid.
That's crazy.
So okay,
all right. So, do you have any cons that you specifically wanted to call out?
I really feel like I haven't really been harping on her, but I really feel like Alita could have been better than she was. It's just not to even elevate her from like being more important than she is in the story, but like she just, like I said earlier, she disappears in the third act. Like it's like she's fighting
Spider Robot, man.
It's Prime. Well, she beats her. and then she brings their head, I think, at the end of it.
About right.
But like, it is Prime and Megatron's moment at that point. But she's just like pushed to the side, and it's I don't know. But like that, and I would have preferred at least some call outs for some other ancillary like Autobot characters or something like that. Because like you get Jazz as a throwaway kind of there, and then you kind of meet. But that's the only other one. There's multitudes of ones that I can pick out that I'm fairly certain they're well-known like characters that are there in the backgrounds. They look a little different because they're in their like minor forms and stuff. But I'm like, come on.
Some of the color schemes that are there and everything. Yeah, you definitely got the sense you had some of the other ones there.
Or thrown out like just some fan service. There's not, like I had said earlier, I think, I can't remember after we watched or whatever, but there's not a ton of fan service in this. There is some, but not like...
It's not beating you in the head with it.
It's not like, oh, that's just for the fans, or that's just for...
I just think it's interesting. It's interesting that you'd say that. And I can get where you'd want that, right? Like, I think but it's a hard balance, and most movies fail the other way, right? Most movies put way too much crap in, right?
Sure. Yes, exactly.
So I can
especially when it's a reboot or something.
Right. So I can appreciate the refrain they show. With that in mind, one of my notes I made here was that I said, I think if you've got a kid that you want to introduce to Transformers, this is the best option.
See, that's why I was trying to tell coworkers, like, you take a kid to see this. This could be like, Jake should totally had an opportunity to see this.
This would have been like, because if it were ever to work, this is a great entry point for it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's not just, and that's great. I guess that's one viewpoint that I haven't really paid any attention to actually seeing it from someone who has basic knowledge.
You didn't take a minute to think about the children who this movie is clearly made for.
I don't care about me. I'm super selfish in that way, especially when it comes to this. But like, it's not for anyone else but me. Only my opinion.
That's
matters.
why I said to Trenton at the beginning of this movie.
Yeah, great. But it was there, wasn't it? I remember it being there. But like, yeah, as an introductory thing. And it does a good job by itself of introducing you to these characters and the mythos, and to like at least get an idea of like how important they are in the context of their own story. Yeah. Not just from when they're here. When they're here and you have to deal with human bullcrap and stuff, like they are the main characters. It's not them.
Yeah.
It's not like, Optimus Prime is the Jaws of the Transformers movies, because whenever he shows up, he does something amazing and then disappears again. Like, dude.
Don't do it now. Don't do it now.
All right.
Don't do it now.
But as an introductory thing, it's great. For anybody who has basic knowledge or wants to have some new knowledge, or a kid who has never seen, like, hopefully, at some point, if in the future, when my nephew gets to a point where he actually cares about stuff, this would be a cool thing to show him, to see if he actually gives a crap.
Yeah.
But maybe not.
No, I gotcha. Sure. Okay, so... All right, so we're going to go ahead. Let's start wrapping into some of the, like, get into the nuts and bolts of all of this.
The bolts.
Right?
Oh, man, who are you?
I know, it's terrible. I know, it's terrible. All right, so I'm going to start off, and I'm going to say, I want to ask you, and it's a silly question, but so silly. Because I know what you're going to answer, I'm just going to say, answer this
question then.
Stub or no stub? Should people go and see this in the theaters?
Sure, absolutely. Does it do everything that I would have wanted it to do? No. But is it great for just anybody with casual interest, and is it the best animated movie that I've probably seen from this year? I would say yes. In the context of like the other animated options,
okay,
I'm biased.
So you are biased, and that's fine. Okay, so I'm going to give you another moment. Go ahead and do this, which is if you had to give it a number rating from 1 to 10.
So it's a stub for yes.
So you've given 1 to 10. You've given it a stub, which says you're saying, "Yep, guys, go out there, go watch it." Yada yada yada.
1 to 10.
Do you have any really quick? Do you have any as far as like? I feel premium format not required. Might be cool if you see it in 3D, but like
I think it would be cool to see it in 3D.
But in general, though, I feel like there's nothing super offered here that I feel like the premium for. Well, I'm saying not the theater, more so that like you don't need to go to Ultra Screen or something like that.
I think you could get still the same vibe from it
Standard,
if you saw it like a
standard
standard
theater
screen or not had to go and splurge for a crazy experience or
and
something.
that's fine. So now 1 through 10, give it a number rating. And I prefer not whole numbers.
Not whole numbers.
Decibels, yeah.
So
give it like
0.5, 0.2,
no,
0.7.
give it like a 7.6 or 7.8 or 6.2 or wherever you're landing on it. Do you need time? Because I can talk for a few while you're thinking. But when I say things, I feel like it might change.
I feel like I'm going to place it higher than I probably could deserve.
And that's fine, because you are a Transformers fan, and that should be considered here, that's fine. I mean, that's fine.
There's not a big bar for like higher than a 7 in comparison to other ones.
I understand that. But again, it's just, where does it land for you?
Okay. I didn't want to give it like decimal point, but it is a solid 8.5, I'd say.
Okay.
I could push it a little closer to like a 9, but there are some detracting things obviously about it and stuff. The one thing that you mentioned earlier is like the score doesn't really do anything.
No, there's nothing to the music at all, man.
Really wish, because there's not a ton of really, like, outside of the original theme and stuff, there's not a ton of memorable Transformers stuff. The Michael Bay stuff has memorable stuff, but they use it so infrequently and incorrectly.
Yeah, sure.
But like the Linkin Park thing, it would have made a lot of sense if they would have incorporated like a popular song, not just from them, but something else that could have went the distance with this.
Yeah.
And I think that that would have elevated it even more so, because score is like huge. Like there's the moment when he gets the Matrix and stuff, and it is surging and stuff and everything. There's a totally like a needle drop moment in that. Well, no, it's when Bumblebee shows up and just starts slicing stuff, and they go straight into dubstep for no reason. It's like, what is this in the score? Like, it's so weird. But
it's a kid's movie, though, man. You know what I mean?
And so, yeah, I'm comfortable with like an 8.5. That feels right to me.
Okay. All right.
Kill it. Kill it.
Yeah, you're not going to like
Bring
what
it down.
I have to say.
Bring it down.
So I would say no stub.
You monster.
Unless you're a parent trying to get out for a bit with your kids.
Wow.
Then go and watch it. There's worse things that you can watch. I don't think this movie's outright kiddie. It's made for kids, though. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I didn't get this. I didn't feel like I was like just being force-fed something that I was just suffering through.
As a nostalgia draw for you, which doesn't really have
There's not anything. A ton of nostalgia draw here for me, though, right?
But for anybody that would have that, you'd say it's a pass?
If it's a nostalgia draw, if you're into Transformers in general...
No, it's just you have casual knowledge of it.
Then it's still a pass. If you're a Transformers fan, go see it.
Would you feel the same way if this wasn't an animated, it was live action?
I don't know. No, I don't think I would feel the same way, but they wouldn't have made this same movie if it was live action in CG.
Well, it would be. It's literally the same thing. Just, you make it more realistic, it's still just an animated movie.
But I think that might help, because, again, some of the visual problems were a big problem that I had with this movie. Like...
That's why I only watched the first...
Because it just turns into a wall of color.
That's why I only watched the first 5 minutes of Bumblebee and then turn it off.
Oh my gosh. No, I understand. I get that. All right, so... If you enjoy animated movies, it's fine. I like the transfer. I like that it has the potential to be better than what we've seen in the past. Like, it's solid groundwork. Even with all of its problems, even with its character and design problems and sound problems, where the story is at, while it didn't go where I would have liked for it to go exactly, it's still a pretty decent foundation for something to build off of. Is it good just because
it's a setup, or is it because it can stand on its own?
I think it stands on its own just fine. Okay. But again, it stands on its own.
Batman's Begins.
It stands on its own just fine without doing anything spectacular or memorable in my mind.
No, that's true. It doesn't really have a major blowing out of the water kind of moment. Like, to the discredit of all the Bay films, they do have their standout moments. Like there are always
they have a moment that you're like, oh, remember that, and you're like,
whole final fight in the first one, the forest fight in the second one, like Dark of the Moon's, like the Battle of Chicago, like that. There are moments in that do stand out from everything.
Memorable moments.
Doesn't really have that.
This does not have.
I thought that the race was going to be, but like I forgot about it. So like it doesn't really stand out.
It doesn't exactly check that box.
Not really.
You know, one of the things is that the movie ended, and I don't know if they're like, man, a lot of those producer names, Steven Spielberg, all those names that are still there for the last 20 years, and it's like if they're just there in that they're not really creatively involved anymore, fine. But like if they're still kind of creatively involved, and I think they kind of are, because I feel like this movie doesn't quite have enough boldness to say
plays it safe.
It plays it way too safe.
It does in certain regards.
And if they had just pushed it a little more, again, PG-13 I think really would have helped. And I know it's easy to just say, well, why doesn't everything just do Into the Spider-Verse?
Spider-Verse isn't catering to an adult sensibility though.
I know. All right, so 4.8.
Oh my gosh, are you kidding me? Wow.
I don't know if
what's our number? We're like, and you're gonna say that's as low as you're gonna go based off of all of this. Disgusting.
We had a lot of gripes that we've just
Let's talk about -1 now. I'm really gonna lay into that.
Well, you can if you want to. That's fine. But like, to me, like, I didn't go in with high expectations, and it just didn't.
You can't say it's not different from everything else that you've seen from them to begin.
But is that a good thing?
No, from the story, because this is stuff that you did not know.
Sure. No, again, I will say, like, again, the bones of that story that's presented, I'm cool with that. I'm cool with what you put that on. If you're bullet pointing on a piece of paper and you're like, here's what we're thinking, I'm like, yeah, that works. But they don't execute it well. And there's nothing that stands out.
From a kid-friendly kind of mentality. I mean, yeah, everybody would want it to be more mature. Anything you would want to have more mature, but the simple fact is it's still based off of a toy franchise.
But look, even without going that more mature route, dude, we've watched a lot of kids movies, man.
You know what's terrible is
and you can execute it better than what this movie
Godzilla
did.
is meant for kids. It's the most boring kids movies
franchise
of all time.
I don't know how it worked for kids in the 60s.
Either they were just enthralled with all the bureaucraticness of Japanese culture.
I don't know.
Maybe. I don't know. It blows me away how, like, I think even to this day they still would see it more as like a kid. Maybe not so much after the past two.
Well, they're starting
to see it as a kid's franchise.
They did up until 2004 for sure, and then they decided, All right, so I'm going to tell you.
Oh man, are you going to rank them? Are you going
to? No.
You're going to rank this one lower than some of the others?
You're going to have to hear what I have to say. I can't wait till we do that. But that's not for this video. That's not for this pod.
Okay, all right.
But I do want to say this, which is, you know what really hurt this movie? That Ultraman movie that I just watched on Netflix.
Why would you compare these two?
They're kids' movies. In one of them,
totally different context.
But they're kids' movies.
Because they're both animated.
One of them was incredible and super engaging, and I really enjoyed it.
This is your fault for having to
watching decent content before going to watch something else.
It's like literally putting like the Lego movie or like Spider-Man in front of this and then going to see this right after.
But that is the bar that this should be held up against.
It's not supposed to be a bar in comparison to everything else, any other kind of content or something.
It's an animated movie.
So The Lion King and Space Jam are supposed to be of equal terms with each other.
Space Jam is not an animated movie, sir.
I just grabbed something.
Yeah, that's if you want to compare Roger Rabbit and Space Jam, fire away.
Right, that's
okay. Fair. And then maybe you don't, but for me, hand-drawn animation is definitely its own thing.
All right, fine. Toy Story versus
whatever.
Monsters versus aliens.
Sure, right. No, again, those are all in the same ballpark.
I mean, critically, you can say these are the ones that are better and these ones are the ones that are worse. But if you're saying that, like, just because from the content of them, that one is better and this one is not as good, or the standard is not as good. That's why can you compare those two? The quality isn't in the mix because they're both animated.
Computer quality, well, they would be compared against each other.
No, because you just said like you can't put CG animation and then hand-drawn animation up against each other.
I wouldn't know.
So then CG is the same, regardless if it's CG or not. Their styles.
Is it on a live-action template? I don't know. Yeah,
Spider-Man's style is definitely of a Turtles. Mutant Madness is a stylized version that is taken to another an elevated form because nobody would have thought you could do it like that.
Do you not compare Mutant Mayhem to Into the Spider-Verse? Tell me you didn't compare those movies to each other.
Are compared in this because they're similar in style, or they're doing something, an effect that is kind of similar to each other?
Sure. To me, I would.
It's a byproduct of it. The only reason why
I won't argue with that at all.
Spider-Verse looks like that and Turtles looks like that because of Spider-Verse.
Yeah.
And whatever will come later, if they choose to go that route of some other franchise or something different and chooses to look like that, it's because Spider-Verse set that precedence.
Yeah, I feel like, I don't know. I guess it just depends on how you compartmentalize different styles of movie, right? Like,
well, I mean, there's tons of different. That's genres. That's the whole point of genres. Everything can look different, but still fit within. A Western isn't going to look the same as a space movie. Like Alien, even though it's a very bare bones, gritty, realistic space movie, that could be I don't know, the equivalent of
See, I wouldn't
a junkyard version of space. Is still a space movie, and you can't compare that to
Friday the 13th movies or something.
Mad Max or something that would be equally as trashy, junky, kind of like that aesthetic, that apocalyptic kind of not apocalyptic, but a used, lived-in kind of film that has that. Blade Runner sure. Is, even though it's still sci-fi, but that is not in space. But that is a byproduct because Alien kind of created that lived-in world.
But they're different genres.
It's still sci-fi.
This is a debate for another. Maybe this is a conversation
Blade
for another
Runner
time.
is more of a detective story.
That's what I'm saying. Those
but
are
anyways, if you're saying that a kaiju movie that is, or an animated kaiju movie that Ultraman is, and Transformers that is literally I don't know, giant robots that are then also not fighting against monsters but themselves. Yeah, it's different. That's different to me.
I don't think it doesn't sound very different based on what you just explained.
Just because it's
but again, I'm not saying that you're wrong if you wouldn't compare those. But for me, and even Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, I'll throw Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs into that conversation. Computer animated movies that is a genre to me.
Nah, see, maybe at the onset of it, Toy Story was its own thing. Monsters Inc., they were subsetted because they were CG at the time. Now it's broadened the horizons so much that
it's the Spider-Man format for an animated movie now, right?
But Spider-Man is a new genre of that style. Is become kind of a new genre within.
What is that? Animated? What do you call that genre?
Sketchy style.
That's an art design choice.
It's CG. It's
maybe it's mature. Maybe that's.
I don't think that's
maybe
mature.
We should
stylistic. It's stylistic CG.
Well, but see, to me, I think Into the Spider-Verse has more mature themes. I think it does, and I'm not. I understand.
What is he dealing with there?
He's dealing with. You see parents dealing with the drama of raising kids. The fact that he's literally told he gets.
But it's still a kid dealing with kid problems.
Yeah, well, that's Spider-Man, right?
Well, Spider-Man's dealing with his own problems, not always kid problems, but usually they're problems that he creates or is dealing with something that's happening around him, which is still true for Spider-Verse. But do
you think Spider-Verse was made targeted for 5-year-olds?
No, Spider-Verse was created for Spider-Man fans.
So that's what I'm saying. Maybe, and in that, there was definitely a
found an audience.
preconceived understanding that there would be there's no way they made that movie and we're just like, yeah, 10 and under are going to gobble this up.
They didn't make this movie for just little kids either, especially with the exposition that it's giving, the middle finger joke.
I'm with you. But again, I think that it doesn't do any of those tones well. Like, it's not strong enough at any of those. It kind of feels like a buddy movie. And honestly, it
is a buddy movie.
The buddy movie element is the strongest element that it has, and that just unfortunately has to fade away, right? Like,
here's my good equivalent to it. It's like Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
Oh gosh,
if Steve Martin went off the deep end and then decided he wanted to be the next Hitler.
Finally, like, lived out all the thoughts that he was dealing with John Candy.
He was like, I've had enough. I'm gonna just shoot the next person I see.
Oh gosh. All right. I'm unless you have anything you want to specifically come at me with.
I don't agree with your ranking or your choice in this. I think that you're a little harsh on it, but that is your choice.
That's fair. I'll probably never watch this movie again.
Fine.
That's how this is gonna end.
Fine. You can't say that you've watched any of the other ones like more than once or twice anyways.
Oh, dude, I've watched Transformers 1. I can't say Transformers 1 now. 07's Transformers. I've bet I've watched that 50 times.
Why?
I think that we're not even going to get into that.
Okay. Right.
I've definitely watched 2 and 3 at least a handful of times. Maybe a dozen. I've watched Bumblebee a few times.
Okay.
I've watched them more than once, man. Like, definitely more than one time.
Well, then that just goes to show that speaks more volumes of as a necessary requirement for having a human-esque story or a grounded story because humans are in it. Then I don't know.
But I will say this. When I say that I probably won't watch this movie again, it's just more so because I don't repeat movies like I used to.
Well,
that's all that comes down to.
But that's the problem with nowadays.
But again, because
stuff doesn't exist that you're going to revisit like over and over again.
If this was 15 years ago and this movie comes out, honestly, gosh, if this would have been the first one they did, then this would have been we would be having a completely different conversation right now.
It would have changed the landscape. Like,
it would have. And by God, if we could do that, that would have been.
It does feel like we're going in reverse. Like, this would have been significantly cheaper and probably a safer bet for the franchise than having to spend the money on the live action
what they did.
thing.
Yeah.
But but the genesis of this had been in, there's the rumors of doing another animated movie has been probably as old as the live action one, if not maybe a little older. But it was never a sure bet. Like, it was probably a sure bet, especially with Spielberg attached to it at the time.
I mean, it was gonna be yeah.
So I don't know, but you're a little harsh. There's a little.
Stubs. All done.